Hi everyone, it's Jan from Jan Plans Things, and today I was sent a parcel from Leuctturm to show you their new red dot journal, and I think this one might be limited edition, and it came in a really fun little parcel with a matching red pencil and also a little red pen loop, which is really nice. So, as most of you guys know, Leuctturm is my journal that I've been using for the past, just I think it's been about 14 months now. It was basically when you Google bullet journaling, this is what comes up. And I was really excited to hear that they've made a new version which uses red dots instead of black dots. And I haven't opened it yet because I kind of wanted to show you guys my first impression. So let's get started. I picked a blue version. Oh, sorry, that's just my knife. Because I wanted it to. Because I like the blue, and it comes with 3 colours, this red dot version. And they were nice enough to put a little J on there for me. So always lift when you're breaking this up so that you don't damage the actual product. Okay. Right, so now if we look on the side, it's got awesome red binding all the way around. Not binding, the binding is blue. The pages are all colored red, which is really, really cool. I think a nice little detail. And inside it says thank you from Leuctturm. And these as well, just some brochures showing you how to use the journal. And at the front in red it says please return to. It's going to write my name on there, and when you turn the page you can kind of see that little red also plays all the way along the edge and doesn't disappear, so you can still see that little detail. And here we go. So the paper is 80 GSM as normal, and we've started off with the contents pages, and the contents pages this time round are still with the red lines as well, so they're keeping with their theme. And then I think there's only 2 content pages this time around, a blank page, and then it goes straight into page number 1. And I don't know if you guys can see this, but the dots are really lovely. They're like a pale red, almost pinkish, because they're so light on the paper. And the binding, as usual, is lay flat binding. I'll flick through. I've got 2 matching bookmarks, one in the blue and one in the striped red and blue. And at the back, I have some really lovely stickers. So in my gold one, they're gold, and the copper one have copper lining. So I really like this little detail that Leuctturm have, so that each of their stickers match the notebook that you have. So this is all red. What I basically do with these stickers is when I've finished a notebook, I can put that on the spine here, so I can see it in the bookshelf. And I kind of use this one to just stick on the front and just say when I was using those. And there's also a back pocket in the back of this one. So the LT is basically my go-to journal, and I'm very, very used to using it. And I think most of the videos that you see me using, I'm always using an LT. So I kind of know how this paper will perform, but in the name of science, I will do another layout with this one so you guys can see how it performs overall. Okay, so just leave it with me and we'll be right back once Humphrey gets off the filming area. Okay, thanks guys. Okay, Humphrey managed to knock off the book off the table, so it's moved a little bit. Sorry about that. But I think one of the funniest things is, one of the most common questions I get is, how come you can watercolor on your Leuctturm even though the paper is only 80 GSM? And I think I'll try and explain a bit that it isn't always the thickness of the paper that determines if it can hold water, because I guess logically you would think if the paper's thicker, it's less likely to seep through, but a lot of really thick papers are designed to seep through. Like a lot of really good cotton watercolor papers are designed so that they absorb color well, or there's different attributes to some watercolor papers where you can paint over it and it lifts the color off the page well. And I guess that's the big difference. The LT is designed, I think, originally for people who were, writing a lot of journals and things, and it's a favorite journal among fountain pen enthusiasts because the ink sits on the top of the page. And it's very, very similar to Tomoe river paper for those of you who use the Hobonichi. So the Hobonichi itself uses like a 68 GSM paper, which is even thinner than this one. And then the fountain pen ink sits on top of that page as well. So the paper is designed not to be super absorbent. And what that means is that the paint is less likely to seep through. And drawing papers, like the ones in the Scribbles That Matter, are more likely to allow ink to seep through. And that's just the way they're designed, because a lot of people prefer that type of texture. But I found that because it's designed to hold fountain pen ink, it's less likely to bleed through. So that's why I can lay down quite a bit of color on the LT and it doesn't bleed. But the problem is it will bleed if you rub your brush across it a lot and you remove the coating off the surface of the paper. And that's also the same with using an eraser. If you buff off that coating and then you try and paint afterwards, the paint will just sink straight through. So I guess that's something to consider, because the LT does also have a lot of ghosting. That's when you kind of see the previous drawing on the page that people don't really like it. But for me, I don't mind the ghosting so much. So when you're looking for your notebook, just try and think of what needs and what annoys you the most about them. Because for some others, like something like the Scribbles That Matter is the perfect notebook for them. Whereas for me, who paints a lot, like something like the LT works pretty well for me. Okay, so I basically tried to use all the materials that I normally would use in my in a spread that I would do, so that you guys can see how the paper reacts. So at the bottom, I've used the Tombow Fudenosuke hard tip pen, which is this one, and then watercolors, obviously for the coloring. I added a few Tombow dual tip brush pens and also the outline sticks to do these dots, which probably weren't necessary in terms of like design wise, but I thought it would be good to see. As well as I used the Fine Tech gold here and the Kuretake gold up here, so that we could see the comparison. I used a little gel fine tip pen here. It's kind of a little bit like the Stabilos or the Muji pens you might get, and all the other line work is done with the Pentel pocket brush pen, as well as the Sakura Micron. This one also looks like this. I think most people are more used to seeing it look like this. So on the opposite side of the paper, you can kind of see here how it's buckled a little bit, which is pretty standard with the LT. I find that I just minimize that by if I can see it buckling, I would go and would pick up all the excess paint off the little rivet so that it doesn't dry. So dry buckled, so you can see the little the divots in the paint. And on the back side, you can kind of see here, it's a little bit buckled from when it's a bit damp, but otherwise it's not too bad. And just gonna, I don't know if that's 100% dry, but you can kind of see there is always ghosting. I'll move this over a bit. There's always ghosting that I find on the LT, but it doesn't bleed. So you can see that this one here, you can see a little bit of the words come through. The Pentel pocket brush pen has actually performed really well on this paper, and I can't tell if it's because it's specifically this book that's better than my current book, but I found it hasn't bled at all, but you can still see the ghosting. Things like they all kind of look evenly ghosted and nothing has actually bled, which is one of the reasons why I like the LT so much, because I actually don't mind this ghosting at all, because the primary journal I used before the LT was actually a Hobonichi, which is much thinner paper. So I know a lot of people have struggled with this type of ghosting, but I never found it a problem, because I find that ghosting is okay, but bleed through is not. Bleed is when the ink actually comes through and pulls onto the other side of the page. And you can kind of see the dots are still strong on this, but whoops, it wasn't dry. Thought so. Now it looks like I bled on the paper. My bad. Cover it with a sticker and everything will be fine. But otherwise, I hope that was helpful for you guys. You kind of see how this paper performs. I've always really liked the Leuctturm. I find it's very friendly for watercolors, and because of the coating on the paper, it's pretty resilient if you want to do a lot of artwork to it. You just have to, I think in order to get it to bleed, you have to kind of like go over and over and over and over again on one spot until you like break through that surface. But otherwise, I've always enjoyed using these notebooks, so I hope you guys found this helpful. Once again, if something like this where the ghosting is very apparent annoys you, I feel like this is probably not the right journal for you. But if you're okay with this, then I highly recommend them. So thanks again, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next time.